Hi everyone, George here. This is my aquascape for 600 and it probably looks okay from that angle. Looks quite nice, doesn't it? But actually it's not. If you're getting close, there's loads of algae. And I'm going to take you through what I do to treat the algae and hopefully prevent it from happening again. So let's have a little think about why we got algae in the first place. Basically it's neglect. If you think about algae and plants always in competition with each other, the better you look after your plants, the less chance you'll get of getting algae. Now, because of my workload at the moment, I'm spending a lot of time away from home and consequently not enough time maintaining the tank. And that is basically giving algae the upper hand. So lack of water changes, lack of liquid fertilisers, not keeping an eye on the CO2, letting the water level drop down too much, just loads of things all combining together to basically not encourage plant growth and therefore encouraging algae growth. So the overall health of the tank is quite good, but I'll show you in a moment some close-ups and you'll soon see that it's not quite as pretty as it might look. So you might just be able to see some of the blackbrush algae at the bottom left there on the hairgrass. In the background you've got the Algae repens, which has got some leaves covered in the algae. And then moving over to the right, you can see the rock there, that's covered in algae. And then you can see the carpet at the front of the tank just there. Loads of algae there, loads of algae on the hygrophila. There's even blackbrush algae on the soil. And yeah, it's just not a very pretty sight when you get up close. When I'm sitting down viewing the tank from the sofa back in the corner of the room, you can't see it. And it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And I've just kind of neglected it. I've been away from home quite a lot lately, been doing workshops all over the UK. And yeah, I've let it slip, no excuses, just neglected water changes. That's probably the biggest thing for causing the algae. Not dosing liquid fertilisers, so I dose every day usually. But in this case it's gone, you know, a few days without any fertilisers. And in my experience, planted tanks, they like consistency. Here you can see some of the blackbeard algae building up on the hygrophila pinnata feeder. Again, it looks okay from a distance, but up close, really noticeable. You can even see the algae purling. So the algae is actually photosynthesizing and producing visible oxygen bubbles. If you look to the bottom left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a lump of wood with BBA growth on it. I find the BBA, blackbeard algae, does tend to build up on wood more than any other hardscape. I think it's because the wood is perhaps leaching organics, which the algae tends to be attracted to. Here we've got a cryptocorini leaf covered in BBA. It's really embarrassing. The more I look, the more I find. It's one of those things. But hopefully this video is gonna show you that you know, I might be a professional aquascaper, but I still suffer from algae just like the rest of us. So, okay, more blackbeard algae there on the Algae. Moving across, oh it's terrible, look at that, there's even snails on there. And then we've got algae build up on the rock as well. So the shrimp aren't eating it. Cherry shrimp don't actually eat much algae. Amino shrimp are much better. I like cherry shrimp though, they tend to graze all the surfaces before hopefully algae can take a hold, but things have got to such a state that even the shrimp, the hundreds of shrimp I've got on here aren't having an effect on the algae, so there we go. It is recoverable, and that's what this video is all about. Hopefully I'm going to show you guys what I do to treat the algae, but more importantly it's not about treating it, it's about preventing it from occurring again. So it just shows the importance of preventative maintenance rather than corrective maintenance. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go through my standard maintenance practice, but also include some extra bits to get rid of as much algae as I can without totally destroying the aquascape. Probably more than half of the plants have got algae on, but I'm not going to remove all of those plants because obviously it will destroy the aquascape. So it's going to be a case of removing most of the algae, most of the really heavily affected plant leaves, and then keeping up the water changes, and I'll talk about more technique after I've done the maintenance practice and during the maintenance practice. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is turn the filter and heater off and then drop the water level down so we can maintain the tank without spilling water over the edge. And then siphon about 15-20 litres out. So now it's a case of looking at the worst affected leaves and then just removing them. You could use scissors, but I find it easier just to use your fingers and thumbs. So we've got a pretty bad leaf there. And if the tank's healthy, it's no real problem removing the leaves because they'll just grow back. Most plants, when you trim them, it kind of stimulates new growth. So it will take a bit of a hit. The aquascape will take a bit of a hit because I'm removing, a lot of the plants, which will have an effect on the whole aesthetic. But in a few weeks, it will hopefully grow back, nice and healthy, with little or no nuisance algae. It's just a really good, proof really that if you neglect an aquarium long enough, you will get punished by algae, especially a high energy aquascape like this. I'm running a Twin Star 600S, which is a new LED from Twin Star. It's relatively powerful. It's more powerful than the old E series, and you need to be really on top of your CO2, your fertilisers, your water changes. If you miss out any of those, your circulation, if your filter's not clean enough, if it's a little bit blocked, any build-up of waste organics, algae will punish you, and that's what's happened here. So it's a nuisance, but it's a lesson, and it's hopefully a lesson that you guys can learn from as well. I very rarely show videos of my algae in my tanks, and to be honest, I rarely run into algae issues, but like I said earlier, I have been away from home. I've got a lot on my plate. I've been putting a new kitchen in as well, so aquarium maintenance, my home aquarium maintenance tends to come a bit further down on the list. So just concentrating more on the Staragani leaves at the moment. You can see, hopefully you can see that it's got the BBA on the tips especially. Now BBA or blackbeard algae or blackbrush algae is a real nuisance algae. It's so stubborn. Once you've got it, it's actually quite hard to manually remove. It's virtually impossible to scrub off a leaf without damaging the leaf. If it's on the hardscape, I'll often use a metal wire brush rather than a toothbrush, because a toothbrush won't have any effect on it, it's that stubborn. So it is a real nuisance algae. Lots of different theories about what causes it. My personal experience and belief is algae is generally caused by a combination of factors. It's very rarely just one factor. In my case, lack of maintenance. The lack of maintenance results in a build-up of waste organics, and my belief is that an excess waste organics leads to nuisance algae. In particular, it's BBA. I don't have any other types of algae in here, it's literally just the BBA. So I guess that's a bit of a blessing. There are other ways to treat it. You can dose a liquid carbon product like Seachem Ferrix XL or Easy Life, Easy Carbon. There are other products out there. Most of them are based on the active ingredient is glutaraldehyde, which is actually really toxic. So it's if it's overdosed, it is potentially lethal to the livestock. It's not very good for your skin or if you inhale it. I tend to avoid it these days. I used to use it, but after reading a lot about it, I've decided I'm not going to use it. But it's obviously a personal preference. So I'm just going to repeat this process all over the tank. I'm looking at all the worst effective leaves. Some of the hair grass are covered, and it's probably going to be easy to trim them with scissors, and I'll show you how I do that in a moment. It's also an opportunity just to trim the plants back if they need it. This is Hydrocotyl Japan. This is a bit of a brute. It's quite invasive. It does need cutting back. And interestingly, it does show that there's very little BBA on the hydrocotyle, and I would say that's because it's such a fast grower. It kind of fights off the algae. The faster a plant is growing, the less chance you've got of algae build up on it. Things like Anubias, Bucophilandra, you know, the slower growing plants tend to have more algae build up. Got some cryptocoryne leaves here which are covered in the algae as well, so I'm just going to remove the worst affected leaves, and again that will stimulate new growth, and the new growth will be algae free hopefully, because I will be keeping up the maintenance on this. Could even train up one of the kids to do water changes for me. Some of you may have seen Toby and Florence in my previous videos. They tend to not get too involved with them these days. They're a little bit too, I guess, a bit more self-conscious. It is a nice scape though. I'm happy with this scape. It's lovely and colourful. Reminds me of autumn. There's lots of reds and browns in here. And I'm filming this at the end of October, so we are very much in the midst of autumn in the UK right now. So next I'm just going to trim the hairgrass and try and get the blades that are worst affected. They should float to the surface, and I can net them off. Oh, there's baby shrimp in there, that's a good sign. The tank is very lightly stocked with fish. There's about 15 green neon tetras, paracoridon simulins, and there's actually some scarlet baddis in there, which I kept in a nano, and then when I stripped the nano tank down, I love the fish so much, I put them in here. They're actually thriving. I don't feed them live food, but because the tank's mature, there's a lot of like microflora, microfauna in the substrate that they feed on, or even the baby shrimp. I guess they'd eat them. But there's such a large colony, active breeding colony of shrimp. It's self-sustaining, so the few shrimp that they need to eat have little impact on the overall population because they are breeding so prolifically. So we can trim the hairgrass really quite short. That's going to stimulate new growth. Could do with a trim anyway. It is nice to have it is a mini hairgrass, so it's designed to be a short plant. And I'm just going to trim this back here, just give it a bit of shape. Trim that hydrocotyle, there's some hygrophila there that needs trimming back. Probably the worst BBA I've experienced in a long time. Some more trimming down here, could do a bit of a tidy up. I can see some BBA building up on here. There's even some BBA on some old growth there. So you can be quite harsh with the trimming. If you've got a healthy planter tank system, you can trim back relatively hard, and hopefully it's just going to promote new growth. And if you look after that new growth, then that's going to help prevent algae coming back. So these are cool scissors. These were donated by a company called Aquarium Plant Food UK. John Whelan. If you're watching, John, hope you're doing well. Some of the moss has dropped down into the grass, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. It can potentially choke it, but if you keep on top of it, it should be okay. You can see the scarlet baddis there just at the bottom of the screen. Really good little hunters. The green neons. And you can just see some BBA. It's really quite rampant in here. A little bit embarrassing, to be honest. Okay, we're nearly there with all of the trimming of the plants. Now I'm going to clean the rock and the wood with a metal toothbrush, or not a toothbrush, just a metal wire brush. The BBA is absolutely stubborn. It does take a real effort to remove it. This is Sirius stone or mini landscape rock, and it does have some algae growth on there. So just give that a really good clean. It is going to cloud the water significantly. Mini landscape rock is effectively limestone, does contain lime, will increase your pH and hardness. It's not an issue for me because my water is already very hard. But basically, every time you do this, you are effectively wearing a little bit of the rock away. So do bear that in mind. Interestingly, as you add more CO2, that drops the pH of the water, and that will increase the kind of erosion rate of the stone as well. Got some stone down here as well, which we can clean off. So with maintenance, I mentioned it earlier, you want to be doing preventative maintenance. This is called corrective maintenance, so we're correcting a problem. If we do preventative maintenance, that problem will never occur. So because I've neglected the tank, I've had to perform this corrective maintenance. It takes longer, it's more frustrating, the tank looks uglier. You know, if I just spent that extra hour a week, 2 hours a week, whatever it would be, maintaining it more frequently, then this would never have happened. So it is a lesson. You know, I've been doing this hobby about 15 years and you know, I'm not immune to algae by any means. It just shows if you do neglect a system, if you do neglect your escape, then algae is always there to punish you. So what I'll do in future is immediately after this session I'll do another water change in 2 days' time, and then I'll probably be doing at least 2 water changes a week, 50% water changes a week, dosing religiously about 8 millilitres of fertiliser, aquascape a complete liquid plant food, keeping an eye on that CO2, perhaps adjusting the filter outlet to get better circulation. You can see the tank is looking really cloudy from scrubbing all that rock, but it's what we need to do. By the end of the video, hopefully you'll see a much nicer, less algae infested aquascape. So you can spot dose liquid carbon. What I used to do is just drain as much water as needed to expose the BBA, and literally paint the liquid carbon on with a little brush, and then that will really kind of kill the BBA quite quickly. But I don't like to use it these days that much, so I'm resorting to good old metal wire brush, and then more natural methods like water changes, good CO2 management, and focusing basically on plant growth. That's what it's all about. It's all about getting really good plant growth, healthy plant growth in a well-balanced system, and you shouldn't get algae. You always get a little bit of algae, but it shouldn't get to this point for sure. Okay, next we do have some BBA build up on the wood. The wood's actually quite loose. It's not really fixed to anything, so I can actually take that out completely and do that under a running tap with a wire brush. While that's out, I'll just clean this rock here. This doesn't actually much BBA on here, it's mainly just regular green algae that's built up from the light. It's really close to the light here, so no wonder it's so much algae on it. Okay, you see the tank's looking a right mess. It's just a result of basically brushing away as much of the BBA as I could off the stone and the wood. But it will obviously clear up once we do a huge water change, which we'll do at the end. Now I'm just going to use my tweezers just to, there are some bits of soil covered in VBA, so I'm just getting rid of those. Some badly affected Hygrophila leaves there. This is a nice plant. This is Hygrophila Algae, which is in good light goes red, as you can see. It's really bad, there's BBA around here. I might just try and siphon some of that away. What you can do as well is just give it a gentle pat. It's just going to dislodge any organics that are collected. A bit of a wave as well. And we siphon all that off as part of the water change. Okay, so now it's just a case of a huge water change. Because the water is so bad, I'm actually going to do 2 huge water changes. So using my famous red colander, pour the fresh water back in. Okay, so I filled the tank back up with about 3/4 full of fresh dechlorinated water, just tap water. I actually forgot to clean the glass first time round, so I'll do that now. And then I'll follow this up with a second water change, just to make sure all those waste organics that have been dislodged into the water column. It's quite a cool view from above. Get to really appreciate the depth of the tank, the front to rear depth, 50 centimetres on the aquascape 600. Loads of room to aquascape, easy to maintain. Good surface area for oxygen exchange. Okay, last bit of water, then we can fit the filter. I like to top it up near the top. Here we go. These are actually a prototype steel piping that I might release as part of the Aquascaper brand. I can't talk too much about it because it might not happen, but it's definitely one of the products we're thinking of releasing. There's a floating inlet there which acts as a surface skimmer. And these are clean, but I'll clean that later. Okay, so the tank's now maintained. We've got rid of most of the blackbeard algae, and now it's going to be really focusing on the future maintenance practice to prevent that algae from happening again. So I'll be doing at least 2 50% water changes a week. I'll be religiously dosing 8 millilitres of Aquascaper complete liquid plant food. Just keeping an eye on things, making sure the filter's kept clean, and yeah, hopefully you can see the difference. I'm really pleased with it. It's looking crystal clear. The fish are happy, the plants are happy, I'm happy. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please subscribe and keep on scaping. Cheers.